Welcome to Mo's Market Pulse. I'm your host, Sara Mokaram, founder of Mo Digital Solutions, where we help businesses hit their revenue goals and thrive. On this podcast, we talk with industry leaders to gain real insights. And today we're joined by someone who has spent decades working at the intersection of enterprise technology, financial services, and startup innovation. Neeraj Vir is the founder and managing partner of Amalgam, a technology services firm that partners with startups and growing organizations to help them move faster, build smarter, and scale with intention. Thank you so much, Neeraj, and thank you for just joining us today.
Good to be here, Sarah. And I couldn't have said it better than you did. I loved your introduction better than what I could have done. I appreciate that. This is great. And good to be here.
Well, I would like to say, just to start us off, I would love you to, just describe your business now and who are the types of companies you're most focused on serving. And if you do want to add anything to the introduction, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, we just like everybody else in the tech services business are evolving. I mean, largely, as you know, there are external and internal factors. The external factors being with, all the innovations in AI that require less and less people in the sense of the number of individuals doing. But I think the quality is now required even more because as they would say in construction, I was growing up, my uncle who was in construction says, hey, if you give a monkey a hammer, right, and you ask them to build a house, you'll have a lot of injured people. And I feel like that's what's going to happen where, yes, AI is enabling a lot of people to do white coding and things in that nature, but it's also creating a lot of software that is not scalable. And we've actually been asked to review such software and redo some of it, and sometimes we have to just read it. I mean, I'm taking a segue to the worst area in the sense that everybody's talking about AI, and it's obviously in our realm as well. But I think what differentiates us from the normal tech services company is just our attitude and just how we engage with people. I think another way to look at it would be if a tech project is a wedding and an entrepreneur is a groom, then we want to be the best man. Right. We want to be the one holding the ring. We want to be the one making sure that the groom doesn't run away. If you're parting, make sure that there are no pictures taken. And so we bring in a sense we're bringing in technology know-how, we are bringing in flexibility, and we're bringing in an easy way to work with, where we're not trying to sell a certain set of technology, we're not trying to sell a certain methodology. We have honed in a methodology that works really well. But then if it's a first-time startup builder versus a seasoned executive, we are flexible enough to kind of make sure that we engage in a manner that's more suitable for that environment. We've done projects in multiple places and multiple industries. A lot of them have been traditional, the financial services or industry or insurance industries. But over the period of time, we have intentionally, as you use the word intentional, gone and started to work with a green technology initiative. So we worked with a few solar companies. Right now, we are in the midst of signing up a project and a company which is trying to do carbon capture, and it's very interesting to kind of see yourself developing and helping to the issues that are close to us as a company, as an individual. So I hope it gives you a fairly high idea about we're kind of, it might be in a negative way, we're all over the place, but I think the intention is, like I said, to be very, very close to entrepreneurial ventures, whether they are in traditional businesses or new businesses.
Great. Yeah, that gives us a great picture of what you guys are doing. And I must say, I love your analogies. Those paint a great picture. So, what's interesting about your journey is that it didn't begin with entrepreneurship right away. You spent a significant part of your career inside large financial services organizations. So, thinking back to those early years working in banking software, what lessons from that environment most directly shaped how you operate today with your business?
I mean, they were huge. So we do understand that a lot of times the problems you're trying to solve are really not even technology problems. They are problems, not even problems, they are constraints that are within an organization. There are constraints within a budgeting. There's constraints within how these different areas will operate. So, because we have gone through, and it's just not me, even my fellow consultants that I've brought in over the years, a lot of them have gone through that stage of being working in a big organization and understanding that they could have done things much better and faster had they had not the constraints. Knowing those constraints, now they know that there are some aspects which they will have to live with. So we try to find creative ways to solve those issues. I mean, my light bulb went off, and I still go back to those days when I was a consultant after I left the big technology services company. Was I was on a call and we ended up with 30 people on the call, literally. And I was a business solution architect. And we're trying to, get two sides of the business together. And we were on one screen and we ended up talking 30 minutes between whether there should be at that time, whether it should be a radio button or, a checkbox. And I looked at it and there was this two feelings. One was immense anger. Is like, why did we spend that much time with people from everywhere? But it also made me realize that yes, all these issues or all these things have to be, you have to make sure that everybody understands it. And so we are patient because we understand that there are things that we have to educate people over a period of time in bigger organizations. And the other things is we are angry enough when we see such inadequacies or inefficiencies to point them out to customers and say, we understand you, but it's still wrong. Or in certain cases, working with newer entrepreneurs and startup owners, we say, yes, you can go ahead and fast, and it's not going to affect this. These things are always reversible. So I think we try to find the balance, like in the middle path, as the Buddhist ethos says, find the middle path. So we try to find the middle path that can cut through all of these things in a in a in a manner that is not really even technology; it's really people and processes.
hmm It's like let's work out that checkbox or radio button over email and not in a 30-person meeting for 30 minutes.
Or let the customer experience decide it. Come on. I mean, the
Yeah,
customer experience team is there for that reason, right? So
right.
let them be the people to decide it. And you really don't have to spend that much time as an operations person, for example.
So today, your company isn't just a services firm. You're a long-term tech partner, really. And so when a company works with you, what do you want them to feel is fundamentally different about your guys' relationship versus maybe some other partnerships?
I mean, a lot of people and a lot of companies say, hey, we want to be partners. I mean, we really want to be partners in the sense that there have been instances where we've worked with even, being able to get paid in equity, for example. Like, I mean, if we like something, we're not just sitting on the sidelines. We are proactively finding solutions, not only for the technology that we work in, but even other aspects of, legal help, for example. I had one customer who was a very promising biotech company and they were expanding in the Middle East. And I literally called a friend of mine who used to be an attorney in Dubai and connected them so that they could work together. So I'm always looking out, and we as individuals within the companies are looking beyond our so-called expertise to say, can we help this customer along? Because like my whole aim was like I did a startup and I did another startup and I exited one with laurels, the other one failed completely. And in both, I realized that it's really the speed of market and the flexibility that the entrepreneur has to show. And also realized that I couldn't do that intensive thing over and over again. So intentionally, I've been moving Amalgam into a place where we could be really fun and effective partners to these startups that they themselves might not know things to. So I'm kind of living vicariously through other initiatives as well. Like I can't do 10 of them in my lifetime. I probably, if I try, I might probably do another couple in my lifetime, but I could help 10, 15 more at a pace and at a thing and help them shortcut some of those things that, they might realize maybe after 6 months of being in the thing. So we can shortcut those things. And that's my intention.
This transitions us well. I want to move to the growth side of the business. And you've mentioned you're not chasing volume for the sake of growth, but instead you're selective about the clients you bring on. So, how does that philosophy show up in how you think about your client acquisition and partnerships today?
So a lot has to do with we you know I've tried to think that way about growth in the sense we bombard 500 people with who we are and try to sift through it and create that sales channel. And I'm like, neither me or my organization ever wants to be like that. Like we still go traditional ways where we want to get a warm handshake from a referral, or we want to go into an industry organization where we present, or we are constantly showing up and they know who we are, and then we get that referral. So for me, the volume is not the importance. It's the quality of the referral that we get. It's the quality of the conversation we've had before we even talk about, "Hey, we want to work with you." Like, I don't want to ever meet anybody and say, "Hey, I run a tech service company. How about we talk about work?" I never start my conversation like that. I don't think that's the right way to do it, at least in me. For me, it's like, okay, let me understand what you're trying to do. Tell me what your challenges are. Tell me how things have been going. Want to understand. And if it interests me, and if I give them certain ways that we have helped our customers, and if there is a commonality in purpose, that's the people we want to work with. And then it's also personal. You can be very process oriented in the sense that, you work with X amount of people who are doing certain things. My philosophy is we want to gel at a personal level. We want to gel at an organizational cultural level first. And if that goes well, then everything else is solvable, right? The technology is never, at least more and more recent, as I can tell, there's technology is actually going to be the easy part. It's the understanding, it's the right building the right thing, not necessarily building it right. It's that is becoming more and more again in the forefront with all the tool sets that we have at our disposal. So long story short, I think our strategy is again more deeply ingrained, doing our homework, learning about things, being a confidant even before we ever sign a contract.
I guess that really does align then with what you were talking about earlier, just with partnerships and a relationship first approach, because it is really, really critical that you connect and align and like the people that you work with, especially if you want to be that partner and go that extra mile for them. So I love that. And so, from your perspective, though, with having that approach really be relationships first. What do you think? What has made this approach maybe harder for the company to evolve, if anything, in your opinion, or of course easier in the sense I'd assume with just having great relationships and wanting to have longer term contracts or partnerships. But what would you say are some of the harder aspects of having that relationship approach
I mean,
first?
definitely it takes a lot of repeated conversations, and it takes kind of a no sell approach in the sense that you're not selling, you're always trying to be in your prospective partner's corner, right? Takes a long time. We could have grown faster. Like I've seen and heard and experienced, there are other companies that have traditionally, I mean, if you take headcount and if you take even revenue, I've seen other companies do better than us. But I'm yet to see those companies retaining over 95% of their clients like we have. Do we not lose clients here and there? Yes, we do. But again, they are more in the sense where after working for a few months and think we realize maybe the culture is different. Like what we were thinking that we were going to bring to the table, that's not coming. It's never about not fit from a skill perspective. It could be a not fit from a cultural perspective or the expectation perspective. So even though we try so hard to make sure that the expectations are clearly laid out, the feeling is mutual, there's still, it's like any other relationship. You realize that either what we did during the dating period was not true, or it was now reality has struck in and it's not going to be the way it was. So again, it's a slower, more intentional growth. It is based on a fact that we want to do good work, but we also want to be good custodians and good people to each other. And that's important to us.
Definitely. And so now, kind of going back to that topic with the experience with those 30 people in the room and, the
Yeah.
button voice
Yeah.
there.
This,
So,
I still get PTSD, I'm like, what was I doing there? Why didn't I just quit right there?
so with kind of those friction points, especially that shows up in some of these larger organizations, and how decision making really is slowed or to a halt sometimes, even with too many people involved. How has that experience shaped the way you structure your projects and decision making with your own clients?
Yeah, I mean, we're hyper agile in the sense that we do things more from a perspective. The first thing we want to do is create a working prototype. Like, you know, let's not talk about a long drawn discovery requirements and things in that process. Let's do something. And a lot of times, again, I mean, I've taken an approach where I take a lot of risk at times. Is I said I'll build the prototype on my dime. Like, give me your high level things and let us come back to you with two or three different ways to do things. And if you like it, you choose. If you don't like it, no problem. Again, depending on how we measure that prospect, and then knowing that they will also stand to their words. If we do something and they like it, they will go ahead. So there's a lot of reading behind the scenes, but so we try to take a very prototype approach. Even when we're doing agile development, we create real-time channels. For example, we use Slack. We will create a real-time channel between the customer and us where they have access to everyone who's working on their projects on a real-time basis. So big organizations already had that. So when we work with, for example, a bank or a insurance company who's big, so our consultants are plugged into the network anyway. But even with smaller customers who don't have that kind of uh, you know s- that kind of infrastructure, we bring them in our infrastructure and say, you have visibility to everything that we're doing. And it's hyper kind of transparent. If at times my development team or my business analyst or my QA sees something, they also see it. Like, we're not scared to show them what's under the covers. We try to make it easy and things. And I think that again adds to a level of understanding and collaboration that you cannot have it if things are hidden from you, right? So I think between that and between our agile approach and our prototyping approach, as well as our own entrepreneurial aspect towards this company, is like, okay, we will take a stand and we know that we can do it. And by the way, we will do it and show it to you rather than you having to go through it, right? So we undertake some of that risk. Again, those are for specific instances, specific projects that we know a lot more, even sometimes even more than our customers. So we can do that. Not every instance allows for that, obviously. But yeah, so we take a very entrepreneurial approach ourselves to doing that.
So a lot of action forwards and
Yes.
transparency, but at least there's that movement forwards
And
then.
that's what we learn. We learn we as individuals, even as corporations and businesses, we learn the most when we do something, either it works or it doesn't. Now, hypothetically and all of that is great, but it doesn't add to the agility unless you actually do some of that. And again, one another aspect or another technique is for us to take the hardest thing possible that's we identify in the project and say, don't worry about everything. Let's just concentrate on the first 4 weeks as a POC. A lot of times POCs become like, oh, we'll just do the wireframes, or we'll just do the, no, we're saying we're the opposite. We'll do the algorithm first, and we'll input it through the command line, and we'll give you the answer to it before we build that. Again, in some cases, that's what's needed. In other cases, it's a traditional wireframing. It's the traditional kind of, let's build out the whole app, how it's going to be customer experience, and then let's worry about the back end, right? So there's always that flexibilities. Again, it is because a lot of our consultants again have been burnt out from these big organizations worldwide that I've collected these in a bunch of very experienced as well as people who didn't want to stay and weren't comfortable in where they were because they wanted to really make a decision, right? Make a change. Those people understand, that this is the biggest risk and this is what we need to do. And so we're like, yeah, let's take the big risk first.
Great. And you shared earlier about a company that you're working with that has true impact. And so, wanting to spend your time on work that feels meaningful and energizing. How do you balance that personal drive to wanting to choose these projects that have real meaning behind them with the realities of running and sustaining a service business?
So, I mean, again, it has to be a balance. Like, can all my projects be like that? No, we'll run out of business, right? I mean, it's simple as that. So, there is a balance that we try to strike, which is we're a service provider, so a big chunk of our revenue comes from established businesses that are. I wouldn't degrade them by saying run of the mill, but it is, it's established business, and we are trying to solve tech problems. In the other scenario, these are not even established businesses. They're new concepts of doing a business that itself has a lot of failure points. And then you're trying to, create this new set of technology that's never existed before. It's very challenging and it's fun, but it's a very small part of what I do. So I don't take those kind of projects. I mean, if I was to say even 15 to 20% of our work goes there. Like we start to see that a lot of those businesses are in our portfolio that we are taking a lot of risk. So it's running like a portfolio manager, right? You're looking at your portfolio and you're looking, okay, where is the risk that is associated with us failing a lot? But they're fun and there can be something really wonderful to think back on when you think, oh, helped, develop a company develop a new way of carbon capture, for example, or we helped a company take solar panel and modernize it in the sense that now it can be used for a peer-to-peer energy transfer in the future on a blockchain, for example. Or, hey, we've done this and that. So, so we kind of try to manage it as a like a portfolio management in an organization with this. That's how we make sure that, we're not getting over excited about things and being realistic about what we can achieve and what we don't have yet the wherewithal to do.
That makes sense. And looking at your current growth approach, are there any areas where you feel there may be blind spots, things that, are working well today, but potentially could create constraints later if left unexamined?
I think like just like with any technology services, and I want to give the example of portfolio again, is that you got to keep balancing it, right? You might not realize, but over a period of time, you might find that over 30 or 40% of your business now comes from one organization, right? And again, a lot of these big organizations are big, they move slowly, but hey, change of leadership can change their outlook towards you as a service provider. I think that tends to be the blind spot where in the past we've gone, at one point 30 to 40% of our business with one big entity, and that entity suddenly had some renewal of where they want to go, and we had fractions. Those are kind of the blind spots that you can't stay away from or can't completely predict. So we try to grow our set of consultants and our bench accordingly, and we try to make sure that we are not ignoring certain newer or let's not all let's not put most of our eggs in one basket. Let's spread the risk a little. The other thing, obviously, again, I started the conversation with the whole thing that's happening with AI and vibe coding. So I think that's the case which I am optimistic and slightly pessimistic at the same time, just like with every technology, right? It tries to say we're going to try and solve a lot of problems, and it does. but not to the flavor that you thought it would, or not to the extent it was supposed to. So we are, just like every technical services, are incorporating aspects of vibe coding. We're looking at Cursor, we're looking at Anthropic, Claude, and then so on, and we're getting more efficient in our output. Do I feel like, is that the end all? No, the end all is game all is always trying to bring the best solution possible. Whether it's AI driven or human driven is not point here. The point is, are we solving the right problem? Are we solving it well? Like, what are the other aspects that, again, AI is a tool that if you give it the right requirements, if you give it the right prompts, it'll do the thing really well. But what if you're giving the wrong prompts? What if you're not solving the right thing? What if you're not? So again, a balanced approach towards technology, both as a user and as a developer in technology, is required. And we do that very well.
Yeah, we have to really look at those AI systems as tools,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
They're really tools that you have to know how to use a tool properly. I guess similar to your earlier analogy about building of the house, right? They're great and they can be very useful, but if you don't know how to use the tool, then it won't be so awesome. So, looking ahead over the next 6 to 12 months, what are the most important priorities for you and your business?
Again, I think priorities have really don't change from year to year, in the sense that growth is needed. Obviously, if you're not growing, then you're dying, as somebody said, or I don't remember, something like that. It's there's a growth, and then there is retrench, but there's also a thing in between called sustainable, right? Are you sustainable? We we want to remain sustainable, and again, it all comes down to the I quote a lot of from my religious and spiritual background. Like, it's the Trinity, right? You have the creator, and then you have the destroyer. But at least in Hindu philosophy, right, the sustainer is supposedly the most important of them all, right? You need all three. You need a creative way to start things, and you need to let go of things that don't work for you anymore. And this is true for human life as well as business. But it's the sustainer in between, which goes through the daily, you know, daily struggles of making sure that what you're creating and what you're building is also relevant. And I think that's where all my focuses tends to be, is like, okay, we just don't want to do a cool thing just because it's cool. Yeah, it's great that we are helping a cool thing, but is it sustainable? So is it something that would help humanity? Will it help the business? Will it help what they're saying it is? So there's a lot of thought process that goes into us evaluating our customers, in the sense where we should be paying more attention to. And just like everything else, like I said, if it's unsustainable, then you part ways. And if it's something that's unique, you want to give it energy so that it can be birthed. So again, the next 9 to 12 months will be similar to the 9 to 12 months I had before, and the ones before, because I think we've found that formula, right? We found the formula to say, look, we're not going to chase just growth. We're going to make sure that we can help deliver, birth, sustain, and at times help our people. I had a great conversation with one of my partners in another organization, and he and another of his colleagues was developing this so-called platform. I'm sorry to say, I was like the destroyer in that case. And I said, look, you're in this again. I'm very totally transparent. I said, look, I can tell you in a very succinct manner that this can work if you do this. But the way I see the industry, the way I see how things are going, I think you should shelve it for the next couple of years. Don't spend your time in it, and get out of it. Like, don't try and do things that are one, you are not ready for it. Two, you're doing it part time. And three, the industry is not wanting it at this moment. So you can't you can't create demand for something unless you put so much money into it. Like, you need a lot of backing to create demand, right? I mean, we've seen that. Like, Uber created a demand, Airbnb created a demand, and if you don't have those deep pockets, you're not going to be successful. So they are trying to create a demand for something that is really good. It is needed in the future. But if you don't have the funding, so go with funding first. Make sure that you have the money to do it. Don't spend so much time doing this. Well, I mean, I go in circles a lot. I mean, I apologize, but I think all of this is connected to how we approach growth in the same way. We approach growth in a holistic way. For us, it's important that what we're delivering is of the highest quality, but at the same time relevant, right? And we want to be partners and foremost first. It's not necessarily about revenue. Again, if I said revenue was not important, then I'll be lying. Revenue is important, but that's not the only criteria.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much for just sharing your experience and perspective with us today. For those who want to keep up with you or learn more about your work, where's the best place to connect or follow along?
Yeah, I mean, they can connect me or send me a message on LinkedIn. If they like what we do and if they want to interact more, send me a message, and I'm always happy to connect with individuals, irrespective, whatever we might be reason. I'm also available, at least if they're in the Philadelphia area. I am part of Ideas Times Innovations. I'm part of the Philadelphia Global Business Ambassador Program, and I am also on other threads which connect entrepreneurs and service providers. And because at some point in my life, or even at any point of my time, I might be an innovator and a service provider at the same time. And in recent cases, I've also kind of helped with angel funding, and I'm also looking to get into some angel investing conglomerates and so on. So again, happy to have a conversation, but I guess LinkedIn would be the fastest and easiest way to go.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to Mo's Market Pulse. And thank you again, Niraj, for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for these really lovely questions. I appreciated the talk.